Hi, I'm Marty Allman,
And I'm Jill White.
and we are your care partners. We, Jill and I saw a need for an online hub for family caregivers and caregivers who may care for someone in a facility. We all, at some point in time, find ourselves caring for other people. So we wanted to help people navigate. What caregiving's like. And being so close to the holidays, we thought that we would open with recognizing when someone might need care. But let's first start out with who we are.
Who are we?
We're good friends. Jill and I have worked together for years in the healthcare industry. Um, and Jill, why don't you tell people a little bit about you?
So many years ago, I'm talking decades now, I was a certified assisted living administrator, and then spent many decades working in different type of senior communities. First, just senior retirement communities, and then ultimately assisted living with memory care, which had a draw for me, and which is why I did the training and became a certified dementia practitioner. As Marty said, we saw such a demand for help, more so for the caregivers or care partners than for the person with the disease. So that's what we wanted to do. Again, I worked in assisted living, memory care, independent living, the whole gamut. And that's where I met Marty. So we've spent many years together. She developed programs that were introduced into the communities we worked in, and pretty interesting stuff to get into and involved with. But lots of training, obviously, and we're always
Yeah.
learning because everything's changing all the time.
Yes, all the time, all the time. I'm Marty Allman, and basically my career started out about 20 years ago, and I am a certified activities professional. Over the years, I've held titles as recreation therapy director, memory care director. I'm also certified dementia practitioner, and I started caregiving at the very young age of 11 years old. Little did I know that it would be a calling in my life. I took care of a neighbor's mother. Her mother had a stroke, and she just needed somebody to stay home with her while she went out and did a Bible study class. And little old 11-year-old me, and I knew nothing, but I knew that I cared about people, and I had a fondness for older folks and a real respect for older folks at a very young age. So here we are.
Here we are. The other thing that I failed to mention, which has also kept me involved, even though I just retired a year ago, I'm also a facilitator for the
Yes.
Alzheimer's Association and meet regularly with caregiver support groups. And that is, again, what intensified our drive to try to figure out how to get support to these folks that desperately need it, either don't know what to ask for or are kind of humble and don't wish to ask for help, or they don't have time to ask for help. So
Hmm.
it's key that we try to reach folks that are really spending their lives 24/7 taking care of another person and not taking care of themselves typically. And
Hmm.
the holidays are
Right.
the first key to maybe unlocking what's happening.
Eh, very good. Very good segue
Well,
into
thank you, darling.
that. So, we wanted to talk about recognizing when care may be needed. Um, this is the time of year. Thanksgiving is a few days away for us right now. And what are some signs that maybe um, might uh, make you think that someone needs some care? So let's say you come from out of town for the holidays and you noticed someone who keeps their house normally very clean. Um, it's not so clean anymore. And maybe they're not so clean anymore. Maybe you've noticed some hygiene
Hmm.
issues. Not the time to address it when everybody's coming in in the door to visit for the holidays, but make note that that's different. And maybe you can add
Hmm.
some insight into that as well.
Yeah, and it is difficult because the people that are coming to visit are focused on a family get together, a holiday, a joyous occasion, and often they're not really noticing what's going on sort of behind the scenes. But as Marty said, there are things you can certainly look for. Snoop around a little. It's okay because you're concerned about this person to make sure that they are able to care for their home still. Maybe get a housekeeper for a Christmas present for them or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to not put them down necessarily or impact them because most folks are very protective of themselves and often they kind of know something's going on, so they try to hide it, cover it up as they will. Just if you notice things are in different places than they normally were. The other thing, and we've talked about obviously lots of times, when someone who normally enjoyed being with their family is sort of holding back. And I mentioned last time
Mm-hmm.
about a woman that for the first big family holiday in almost a year, she kept going into the bedroom to be alone. And her family didn't know what was going on. And it was the noise, it was sensory overload, which also can be a trigger for someone that has even the very early stages of dementia. That loud TVs, loud conversations, blaring music, children running around
Right,
making
right.
noise. That can really be
Mm-hmm.
a trigger for someone to just, they have to get away from it. So it's just being more cautious and being just more observant about what's going
Right.
on.
And noticing maybe a slight change in someone's baseline personality. Maybe, they're not as patient as they used to be
Hmm.
with the grandkids, or you or other family members. That's kind of a sign that something's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean cognitively either. It could be physically. Maybe
Hmm.
they're in pain. Maybe they're experiencing arthritis or something else going on that um, you know they haven't shared
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Um,
We had an incident with someone that stopped coming to our support group and had been in some pain, obvious when walking, and ended up they were walking around probably for months with a shattered hip.
oh
So
gosh.
three surgeries later. So I mean, it's really a lot of things that you just kind of don't take for granted, and without digging or making an uncomfortable
Right.
situation, try to get whatever information you can visually see or somehow have a conversation about how things are going now,
Hmm. Right.
right?
Right. Sit down and have the conversation. What's been going on in your world. There was something else I wanted to mention. Excuse me, I keep coughing. Um, we were talking about the refrigerator is a big
Yes,
clue.
yes.
Sometimes you made such a funny thing the other time. You were like, make sure that there's not certain things going on in the refrigerator that
Stuff growing.
so yeah, let's just
Let's just put it up there.
stuff growing. I mean, we all have that normal stuff
Yeah,
that we just need to throw away, but
yeah.
if you notice a little bit more,
Mhm.
or maybe not enough food in the
Exactly.
refrigerator or the cabinets,
Yeah.
that's another sign that someone just may need some extra care. We're not saying that that person's going down a downhill slope, but it's a clue.
Yeah,
It's a
and
clue.
their habits have changed. They're no
Hmm.
longer going to church on Sundays. They're not going to their knitting group. They're not getting together with their coffee class. Whatever their activity may have been, golf. I knew someone who stopped golfing. So
Hmm.
things like that can be clues, not necessarily, but that's an easy opener for the conversation. So
Hmm.
you're not attacking them or threatening, or you're just saying, "Hey, I noticed you're not golfing anymore. What's up with that?"
You're right,
And
right.
see what kind of responses you get.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so this kind of leads me into something I wanted to just talk about. It's kind of serious, but have you had conversations with your family members. Um, Maybe you're all very healthy right now. I have a large family, and I have sisters who are older than me. And we've had the conversation. If something happens to you, what are your wishes? What would you like? And maybe we've had these
Mm-hmm.
conversations because we've been in the healthcare field and we've seen on a daily basis
Mm-hmm.
families that show up in crisis. And
Not a great time to
yeah,
make a decision.
no plan in
Not.
place. God love them, and trying to figure out where to turn, and that's the worst time
Yeah.
to get a plan in place is when you're in the middle of a crisis, because you might not make
Mm-hmm.
the best decisions, or you might make
Yeah.
a hurried decision. And so I just wanted to kind of put a, a suggestion out there. There's a group that does something called the Five Wishes. Jill's getting a phone call.
Excuse me. That would happen.
um, but it's an organization, and the website is fivewishes.org, and basically it's five wishes that you may want, or it's a good way to get the conversation started. You can research that website online. Again, it's fivewishes.org. And, it helps you plan for maybe a crisis, or for your future. I don't have any children, and I have lots of great, wonderful nieces and nephews. But they, unfortunately, fortunately, will be the ones that will probably care for me as I age. And so I've made it clear to them what I'd like. Um, and and when it was based on the five wishes, and actually Jill and I both took the 8-hour course on how to have these
Mm-hmm.
conversations about the five wishes. But I just wanted to put that plug in there because I think it's a really good resource, and a good way to maybe begin the conversation
Yeah.
of what you want. It's and again, I want to say at Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Mm.
that might not be the time
Yeah.
to have the conversation, but it might be a good time to say, "Hey, after this, can we just have a
Mm-hmm.
phone call,
Yeah.
and talk about what you'd
Yeah.
like?"
And I think you can open it up by talking about your wishes, what you've got in place, which
Yeah,
hopefully, I always say anybody over the age of 18 really needs to think about that, as sad as it may be. You never know, God forbid somebody gets in a car accident
right,
and they can no longer communicate.
right.
What wishes might they have, or what do they wish to have, as far as extraordinary measures and all that.
Yeah,
But if you're talking about yourself, it's kind of a family or a couple
right.
of family members saying, well, we've decided this is what we want. How do you feel about that? And just make it kind of a natural conversation, not
Hmm.
a family intervention
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
pointedly looking at one person saying,
yeah.
we're here for you. What do you want?
Yeah,
You need.
which kind of in a way kind of brings up just a little. I want to give a little snippet about family dynamics.
Oh, wow. Well, which, by the way, do not change. They just kind of get exacerbated.
Right, right. Family, just because somebody in your family needs care does not mean that your dynamic with that person or anybody else in the family
Yeah,
changes.
that's tough.
It is a wonderful and noble thing to be a caregiver for a loved one or a friend. But just keep that in mind, that you still have that dynamic, whether that person is well or
Yeah.
not.
And most of the people that are doing this caregiving, which is a very, very heavy burden, are not feeling very noble while they're doing it.
Right.
It is a burden. And what we have found, I mean, in our experience, almost, I won't say exclusively, but very often, the family members that are not doing the actual caregiving are usually criticizing the one or ones that are. So
Uh,
it's again, if the conversations are key,
hmm.
especially if you can say, well, remember we talked to mom or we talked to dad, and this is what he wanted or she wanted. So if you
Mhm.
can kind of default and just say, I'm just carrying out wishes. My mother was, we talked about everything. And it was such a blessing to not have to make any decisions. All I had to do was carry out her wishes.
Mhm.
Whether anybody else was happy with it or not, I didn't care. I was carrying out her wishes. And that
Mhm.
really is a gift you can give to the people that will ultimately be caring for you. And by the
Mhm.
way, let them know that you've chosen them for those roles. Because
Right.
that's another key thing that sometimes people forget. Like, oh, I chose my nephew. He's going to be my power of attorney. Well, the nephew was never told until it was necessary. So didn't have the conversation about what might be wanted. So
Right.
it's kind of all tied together. It should be just sort of a
Right.
natural progression, not a catastrophic, we're in a crisis
Right.
situation decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We wanted to also just kind of let you know that if you do get in a crisis situation, let's say you get a phone call that someone's fallen and they're at the hospital, and that can be a very overwhelming experience. And Jill and I want to let you know that we're here, and
Always.
we'll do our best to help you navigate that
Mhm.
situation
And find resources
and find
where you
resources.
are.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna say something else and I just forgot. Oh, well,
It's the
I was
first
gonna
sign.
say, right? True that. We were talking about you and your mom had had the conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
that you need to let the person know. And so I'm gonna just share a little personal bit about myself. My dad was in very good health in his late 80s, and we were all home for some gathering, whether it was a birthday or a holiday or something, and boyfriends, husbands, grandkids, everybody was there. And he said, I want my daughters to come upstairs with me in about 15 minutes, and we're having a family meeting. And we were all like,
Mm.
okay, great, dad, all right. um, and so we all went upstairs to his office, and he sat down and he said, I just want to let you guys know that I have a plan in place. This is what's going to happen. This is who's in charge.
Awesome.
And under no circumstances is this to be changed. And if it is changed, I will be the one that changes it. And so it was very clear. I was
Nice.
very thankful that
Yeah.
he did that, because when it came down to his care, we all knew our roles.
Mm.
And that was,
It's a gift,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's definitely a
it
gift.
was priceless. And it kept us on course.
Yeah.
Um, throughout the caregiving journey,
Mhm.
which we're here to help you navigate, things can get bumpy, and you can get off track, and those dynamics can kick in, and somebody's feelings can get hurt. But like you were saying, if you just bring yourself back
Mhm.
to this is what the person wanted,
Yeah.
then it flows much easier.
Yeah. And
And it can
hopefully,
help you get over whatever your little issue
yeah. I
was.
mean, hopefully there's enough time for the person, like was with your dad, for each individual to then sit with him at some other time, perhaps, and either say thank you for choosing me, or saying, are you kidding? Would you do that?
Right?
Whatever it is. I mean,
Right.
that, because you
I
should
know.
be dealing with that person. It's their wishes. It's not
Right.
your sister Marty who's making the plans, or your sister Jill who decided to do this or that. It's they're carrying out the wishes that
Mhm.
were clearly laid out for everybody. So
Right.
respect it, like it, maybe not, but at least respect
Right.
it.
Right. And you were talking about how one time someone was selected for something. I
Yeah.
just think this is interesting, and this is real.
It
We're just
was
going to be real
Yeah, I
about
mean,
it.
we're sitting in my office with a gentleman and his daughter and son, and he had chosen his daughter for medical power of attorney and his son for financial power of attorney. And when they were talking about what measures he would want, he clearly turned to his daughter and said, "You will have to pull the plug." Well, she teared up instantly and said, "Dad, I won't be able to do that." And he said, "Well, you have to. It's my wishes." She said, I won't be able to do that." And his son piped up and said, "I can do it." So we all had a laugh. And then he switched. He was able to put her, because she was also very good with finances. So he made her the financial power of attorney and his son the medical, which, I mean, it's not a funny situation, but it's a human situation. And it's, again,
Yeah.
letting the people know what you're expecting of them.
Mm-hmm.
there is this role and this is what the role entails, and can you do it? It's probably
Mm-hmm.
best to ask them if they're comfortable with it before,
Right.
you
Before
know,
just saying, you're
bestowing
doing this.
that gift on them. Yeah, like crowning someone. Yeah.
True, true, and that kind of goes back to a time when we were caregiving for my father, and we were each taking turns with him as his um, condition got worse. He needed more and more physical hands-on care, and I had a sibling who wasn't comfortable with that. Um, it had nothing to do with how much she loved my
Mm-mm.
dad or anything like that, but she was not comfortable helping my dad bathe or go to the restroom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and um, and she let us know, so then nobody had that big expectation
Exactly.
of her when it was her turn to care for him. We had a plan in place to make sure those things were done before she came to relieve us
Yeah.
for care.
Perfect.
And applause to her for admitting and being
Yeah.
open enough to say, I'm not comfortable with this. Now, of course, she did when she needed to, but
Mhm.
she let everybody know that she wasn't
She
comfortable
prefer
doing
not
it.
to. And I think that's why those conversations are so important, not just for the person with this disease or that needs the care, but for the people that are going to be doing some of the caregiving, whether that's outside, vendors or private sitters or whatever it is, or family members. It's so important to talk about it and try to. I mean, we know because we both have quirky senses of humor, but it's very important to try to maintain that somehow if you're able to. I
Yeah.
tell a story about my aunt was having a really bad day. I was probably at her home, I don't know how many times a day to help with something that had occurred. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me. She was very strong for whatever, 90 years old, and looked me dead in the eyes and goes, I don't want to get old.
Oh.
And I thought, well, this is not going to go well. And I just looked at her and I said, you know what, Aunt Bet? Too late. And we both had a great laugh, kind of laughed till we cried. And it's like you kind of, it's just real. You're all going through this together. You don't know what the next step is. It's like you're
Mm,
going on a long journey and you have no idea where you're going, how long it's going to take, who's going with you.
right.
It's overwhelming. So use the humor when you can.
My dad used to say, "Well, I don't know. I've never been this old
Oh, I
before."
love it. Oh my God.
Yeah. So maintaining that humor. And what else? There was something else I was gonna say. Oh, have a parachute. So it regardless of where you are in your caregiving phase, I mean, you could just be bringing meals to
Mm.
someone. Have a parachute. So, um, just bringing meals to someone on a weekly basis and being tied to a schedule for that can be exhausting, and trying to maintain your own life
Mhm.
at the same time. So maybe think about putting a backup in place, whether that be a neighbor or people from the person's church,
Mhm. Meals on Wheels,
Meals on Wheels,
whatever's available.
um, friends. A lot of times people will say, "Oh, I heard about your mom or your sister or whoever the person is. Um, please let me know if there's anything I can do to help."
Yeah.
Which is,
That's such an open-ended
it is.
statement. So
And
make a
yeah,
list.
yeah, make a list. If you know you're going to be caring for
Mm-hmm.
someone, uh, get yourself a notebook
Mm-hmm.
and make a list of what you think you're going to need
Mm-hmm.
to make you the best caregiver you can be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that saying, and maybe it's a cliche and been said over and over again, but when you're on an airplane, the first thing they tell you to do is put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yep.
Then you can help others.
Yeah.
And so, having your little notebook and your little list of things that can be oxygen to you,
Yeah.
that feed your spirit, that people can help you with
Mm-hmm.
little things like, um, maybe the boy down the street um, wouldn't mind mowing the lawn
Mm-hmm.
for you one day
Walking a dog.
or walking a dog. We were talking
Yeah.
about that the other day. You know,
Or taking them for a ride, or maybe visiting to
hmm
give the person that's there, if there's someone there all day. I mean, obviously you're going through a stage and things are changing,
right.
but make lists of kind of what you do, and then think of what of those things could someone else actually do for you if you're not
hmm
able to, because
hmm
your time, those 24 hours, seem to evaporate doing something for someone else, and
hmm
there's nothing left for you to get your stuff done. And
hmm
don't be afraid to help, because Marty said that when someone offers to help, that's usually very genuine, and it would be lovely for them to have something, even if it's something very small, to help you with. That would make them feel better that they're kind of helping out in a
Right.
tough situation and doing something.
And it could be something simple like, gee whiz, I had a friend, God love you, Gigi, thank you so much, who called me every single day
Aw,
while I was caring for my dad. That was 3 years
so
that I cared for my dad off and on. And she called me every day just to check in. Hey, where
hmm,
you at today? How you feeling today? Um, that's
it
priceless.
sure is.
I also we had a family friend who really loved my dad, and she would come by and just bring like a big lasagna or some kind
Mm,
of casserole. She would just drop it off. She wouldn't make a big deal about it or anything. She would just like, here you go. And
nice.
then she would leave. Um, she also would come and do the rosary with him, which
Nice.
was really nice and gave me a break during the day. Oh, and something else too. Grocery shopping can be stressful
I hate it.
anyway, right? And I was fortunate enough to be in an area that had Peapod, I think it was
Mm.
from Giant
Oh
Foods,
wow.
and
Did
they
they
would
deliver?
actually deliver the groceries to the house.
Nice.
So I could sit on my phone or
Mm.
iPad and order what we needed, and set up the delivery time, and they would show up. They would even bring the groceries into the house. That was a
That what a
huge.
help.
That was huge. So Peapod or they're
Depending on where you are
yeah.
living.
See if you can get your groceries
Yeah.
delivered. Yeah, I don't mean to just plug
Yeah.
them, but
But now I think most stores like Food Line, I know, I mean, in the Northern Neck, there are a lot of these services that are not quite available here in
right,
the
right.
rural areas. But you can order online, and another friend who's
Can
offered to help could pick it
right
up for
could pick
you.
them
You
up.
pay for it, order it,
hmm
it's great. And then again, they're just doing something little and something minor, but it's really not. It's really a big thing. Any
It's
help is big.
yeah,
Any
it's
help is big.
huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that parachute list is important. Um, Something else that we have talked about in length is starting a journal, and you might
Oh
want to
yeah. Oh my
elaborate on that
gosh.
a little bit.
I think journaling is key to sometimes keeping your sanity. Because you get so caught up in the day to day. There's so many things pulling you in so many different directions. And if you could find 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever amount of time you can sort of set aside or whenever it happens, but to just jot down what's happening, the good, especially, not just, oh, this has been a horrible day and I can't believe it's this bad. Or, in the very beginning, you're maybe jotting down things you're noticing. Gosh, walking a lot slower than ever before. It doesn't want to go all the way to the end of the street anymore. Just little things like that can be very telling. And again, like Marty said in the very beginning, it could be something physical. It could be something going on that, of course, they're not going to tell you, because typically the person doesn't want to be a problem, doesn't want to be
hmm
a burden, doesn't want to be the center of attention, doesn't want to complain. So you kind of have to snoop around a little bit. But the journaling will help you, especially as you look back in time. If you're having a really bad day, maybe turn back to one of those great days where you sat in the garden and watched the birds, or, whatever it was, that did get to go for a nice walk or maybe a great drive. Often driving, I found a lot of the caregivers, when their significant person with the disease is being fidgety or, anxious, they'll say, "Oh, let's go for a ride," or "Let's whatever the destination is, doesn't matter. And often that will sort of calm them down, take their mind off something. I think we've
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot. Dissuading and redirecting is
Mm-hmm.
key. Don't get caught up. It's sort of like arguing with a child. If you argue with someone, you're going to lose. Just don't even. You can't argue. You're going to lose. So just find another way. Find some redirection or walk away
Mm-hmm.
or think it through. But jotting those things down can be key for looking back, and also for, especially if you start it at a baseline, you can actually go back and go, oh yeah, I forgot. He used to do that and he's not doing that anymore. So just making
Mm-hmm.
that just helped you take note of things, because it's overwhelming and so stressful. So you're not going to remember stuff. It also helps when you're going to the doctors. Make
Oh, yeah.
sure you highlight things you want to talk about with the doctor. Otherwise, you're going to get in and blown out the door, and you go, oh shoot, I forgot to ask them this or tell them about that. So writing stuff down,
That's
or
good.
giving yourself memos or whatever your thing is, um, make note of it somehow.
Um, yeah, my sister Susan, um, she was initially taking my dad to doctor's appointments and things like that, and she would write down
Oh,
like what the doctors were telling her. And then she would write down his weight,
perfect.
and his blood pressure and things like that. And then she could come back and tell the rest of us, this is what the doctor said, this is what his blood pressure is. This is what we need to look out for, those kind of things. So that was really helpful too. And she kept a really great journal.
That's great.
Yeah, and as things kind of progressed, and Dad was home more often, and I was a more permanent person caring for him, we had a journal, and I could keep track of, because when you're caregiving, you can't always remember everything. So, I could keep track of when I gave him,
Mm.
his diabetes medication,
Or
or
what he ate or didn't eat,
yeah, what he,
right?
yeah, yeah,
All those things.
the amount of food he was
Mm-hmm.
eating. So then when my other sister came home and kind of took over for me in the evenings, she knew what he had eaten during the day. She knew what medications he'd taken. Um, she knew what kind of day he had, so she could go to that book and kind of flip it and go, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have such a great day today. Maybe
Yeah,
we need to do something kind of fun
yeah.
tonight to, kind of distract him from the not so great day or whatever.
Keeping everyone literally on the same page.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
literally,
key.
yeah. And it helped again. I've got four sisters, and I had a sister that lived out west, and she was able to come into town and just flip through pages and pages and pages. And
Mm-hmm.
then she could, take over for us, and she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Excuse me for fidgeting so much. This is real life.
Um,
So, yeah, those are things I would say, your parachutes should be your friends, your church, the person you're caring for's friends,
mhm.
and your journal. I think those are
Yeah.
really important things if you're going to begin the caregiving journey to
Mhm.
have.
Yeah, that's the communication. It's
Hmm.
absolutely key, especially when there's more than one person involved in overseeing. Even if there's one caregiver, there's lots of people that may be circling around,
Hmm.
waiting to open their parachute. So make use of them. It's
Hmm.
really very, very important. You cannot do this journey on your own. It's impossible,
Hmm.
and you needn't. There's no reason to do it.
Right.
There's probably almost always going to be someone somewhere, and getting the church involved. And I think what I didn't mention earlier was reach out, not just to people that you need help from, but just let your close neighbors know what's going on. Let your church family know what's going on, because often um, people out there will see things that maybe you're not aware of.
Right. Maybe they noticed.
Yeah, or they'll pull back when they're seeing some changes and
Hmm.
they feel awkward. So just bring them up to date. Say, hey, this is going on. We're good. We're okay. Um, they'll become another parachute for you. But
Hmm.
a community should surround
Right.
you and the person.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of that, Share with discretion.
Mm.
You want to maintain a person's dignity and privacy, but at the same time, um, you don't have to tell them what the diagnosis is and blah, 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 blah. You can
Mm.
just say, I'm going to be coming over here more often. And, you know, uh, I'd appreciate it if you just
Yeah.
kept an eye on so and so's
Right.
house or whatever for me
That would be
when
great.
I'm not here. They'll get the gist of it.
Yeah.
Most people will.
If they're fairly close neighbors and friends,
Hmm.
if you trust them. And the other thing I know we didn't talk about yet, and we're going to expand them as we go forward and do other of the podcasts, but also reach out to whatever services are available in your community. We have
Yes.
the sheriff's departments and the police departments in these counties that are so remarkable, so helpful. They have these safe senior programs. They'll call every day if there's no answer, if that person's still living alone. They'll send a deputy out to check on them. They have the bracelets or ankle bracelets or whatever it is, GPS tracking, if you will, so that if somebody does go out and wander off, they can easily locate that person. And we live near a lot of water,
Right.
so it's key. If somebody's
Hmm.
wandered off, it's key to make sure um, they're alerted ASAP.
Yeah.
And we both had some very real experiences with folks that we were dealing with that you wouldn't believe what some people,
Hmm.
they get it in their head that somebody that ended up, instead of driving down the road, he ended up 4 hours away. And somebody else ended up in Naples, Florida.
Right.
So, I mean, and things change. You
Hmm.
never know what you can never really take a sigh of relief because what works today may not work tomorrow.
Hmm.
That's the hard part.
Hmm.
That ever changing, shifting sands, if you will.
Right. Well, we're all individuals and we're all human beings, and you know we all have good days and bad days,
That's
right?
true.
So those things happen. Another organization, usually your area, depending on where you are right now, where we are, we have an organization called Bay Aging, and they are navigation partners too, I would
Mhm.
say. They have programs in place, transportation
Mhm.
programs,
Day programs,
day programs,
caregiving, sitting.
yep,
They have
home
different
home
home.
health and care sitters. So we're fortunate to have that in our community, thanks to grants and things
Yep.
like that. In the more metropolitan areas, I'm sure that there are. It usually falls under the umbrella of the Area Agency on Aging.
Hmm.
And I believe there is a U.S. Organization called U.S. Aging. So you might want to look that
Hmm.
up too, because they might be able to provide some resources
Yep.
or guide you in the right direction. And as Jill said, we're going to elaborate more, and we just kind of wanted to give you an overview of some of the topics we'll be talking about. And we're both just loving, caring people.
Trying to help.
Trying to help and saw a need. So if maybe you're not caring for someone, but you know someone who is caring for another person, you
Mm.
might want to tell them to tune in to our
Mhm.
future podcasts. We're hoping that we'll be able to reach a lot of people and maybe open the eyes of people for
Yeah.
people with dementia and Alzheimer's,
Yep.
Parkinson's. We're going to cover a lot of different health issues, but mainly, we want to focus on caregivers, and this isn't just family caregivers
No.
either.
No. I
This
mean,
is people who work in the industry.
yeah.
We will touch on some things that could be a little controversial, but they need to be said.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially after the last 2 years. Most community associations struggled and suffered and had to change a lot of the things they were doing, and they've not recovered yet. They've not
Hmm.
recovered yet. It's still
There's
difficult.
nursing shortages,
Oh,
CNA
yeah,
shortages.
major, as
Um,
everything else.
hmm.
This information will be available on like Like you'll be able to go to the website or go to
You'll
the.
be able to go to YouTube, and believe it or not, I'm not prepared for that right now,
But you will be.
but I will be. But this first one we're going to put out to everybody we know in the healthcare industry and friends and family on Facebook. And I promise the links to other resources and things like that will be in the description of this video. We do have an email address.
Oh.
It is your care partners in NCFO1
At.
at gmail.com. Sorry. We're just getting the kinks worked out right now. But we see what we're doing as a real help, and we really hope that people will tune in, and if nothing else, laugh and get a and get a kick out of us, maybe get a break in their caregiving day to just go, look at those two fools. What are they doing?
They need help.
Yeah. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to our families for supporting us and believing in us, especially over the years.
And know that you can do this.
You can do it.
But you will definitely have to reach out your hand. But I promise you there will be others reaching their hands toward you. So don't be afraid. Reach out. Okay.
Bye, everyone. God bless. Happy Thanksgiving.